Lavina was her usual well-poised, unobtrusive self. I suppose the diplomat's daughter learns early to act that way. She wore a black satin evening gown that was attractive, but, as always, subtly wrong, and that rarity, black silk stockings. But gradually I became aware of a change in her behavior. She was talking a lot more, to a lot more people than usual, and in an oddly confidential way. She'd link into someone and draw him aside. You'd see her eager, intent face and the bobbing head of her companion as they nodded in agreement. I'd give a good deal to know what she said at those times. I asked Leslie Packard about it afterwards. I can't ask most of the others because I don't know them well enough, or else they've cut me on account of my behavior toward Lavina. Leslie was puzzled at first, but then he said, "Why, George, I believe you're right. I seem to remember that she did say something to me, something that exploded in my brain and left me with the nasty feeling of having been cut loose from my moorings. But I can't remember what it was. I just can't recall." And for a moment he looked at me with an expression of genuine fear. I wish he could recall, because it might give me a clue to things Lavina said to me that night, things that I too have forgotten. But it's probably safer as it is. Whatever the things were, they had their effect, for the party suddenly turned nasty. Of course it was the political arguments become personal and carried to unwise lengths that were responsible. But it was more than that, for they weren't the political arguments of 1949. You've read stories of time travel? Well, this was as if our minds and emotions were time-traveling into the future, living over in one night all the strife and turmoil and suffering of the next 10 years. We were adjusting ourselves in instants to new ideas and loyalties that ordinarily we'd have spent months assimilating. It was as if there were a wine of life that is doled out to mankind, drop by drop, and we had somehow broken open the barrels and were swilling down great bumpers of it. We acted as if we were choosing sides for some bitter social conflict that is to come. We have to call the two sides reactionary and radical, but they weren't exactly reactionary or radical in exactly the sense of those terms today, because, you see, we were reacting to events that haven't happened yet, to ideas unborn. This was frighteningly apparent in the way we lined up, for few of us picked the side you'd have expected. I, for instance, found myself among the reactionaries. Bill McCluskey, looking blank and frightened, joined us. Leslie Packard, his face suddenly losing its bland expression and setting in sardonic lines, was against us. So amazingly was Mrs. Grotus, red-faced and shouting, her gray silk dress flapping. She looked like an enraged lovebird. We were only vaguely aware of where we were heading. Actually, and incredible as it may seem, we were preparing then and there, in that pearl-cool apartment, to fight the great war or revolution or counter-revolution or whatever it is that is to come in, Lord, if I could name the year. I hate to think of that conflict because it isn't going to be nice. Yet I can't tell you a solitary thing about the grounds on which it's going to be fought, except, yes, I think it will have something to do with that split earth symbol. Of course, we were all of us getting drunk without knowing it, but that isn't enough to explain what was happening. Not nearly enough. We were no longer arguing. We were spitting personalities and accusations and threats. Harry Park's face was grim, his eyes were glassy. Howard Fitch's underlip jutted out with sulky viciousness. Along with the incessant shouldering and back-turning and snatching of drinks, there was an ominous feeling of gathering forces. It seems to me that the lights grew dim, and there was a reddish glow from somewhere, but it must have been an illusion. And everywhere went Lavina, slipping from one person to another, whispering, hinting, inciting, I think.